Hey, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here with our first guest. His name is Will Buk. He is a yoga teacher. He's a good friend of ours. We've known each other since high school.
Oh, so we're actually starting? This is it? This is the real deal?
I mean, I'm just doing a little intro.
Hey.
We'd like to start however we want, so we can
Get it done.
We don't have to, we can get a
I can always. I'm gonna. Tell
Yeah,
you
no,
say
this
who
is
you are
perfect.
again
This is perfect.
soon.
I love it. I love it.
I said we just get loose.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Yeah.
So, got a couple things that we want to ask you and talk about today.
All right. First, I just want to say it's an honor to be here and also to be my first time as a guest on a podcast and bringing my dreams come true.
We're excited to have you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, we're really excited to have you on here. We've been talking about having a guest for a very long time, and you may not believe this, but actually, like when we discussed having guests, you were both our choice for having as our first person on here.
Hey, I appreciate that. Happy to be here, honestly.
Yeah, man. It's
Now you're going to get me stoned and have me sounding like a autistic person.
I mean, that's
Notice
the
how I
that's the
held
goal.
restraint to not say the R word?
That's the only thing.
I'm going to get you
that's the only
canceled.
thing
I'm
that
going to
we're
get you
concerned with
canceled on your first guest.
Yeah, exactly. Is
All right.
is getting you to
This
be.
might have to be the one or two hits I take. You know what I was going to say? I always want to do the wheezy lighter flick on a podcast. just for vocals or whatever, audio.
There it is.
Wheezy F. All right, yeah. So what's up? Talk to me, guys. What do you got for me?
We like to talk about mental health, stuff like that. We like to get into the journey that you go through in this process. So if you want to just start off, like, what got you into yoga?
Yoga? Well, so basically an injury got me into yoga. I've played sports my whole life since I was a little kid, and even got scoliosis at a young age. I was like one of those kids that had the early growth spurt. I was like always like the tallest in my class, like up until I went to Heritage, which then Brian Solomon was the guy that took that crown away from me. But no, it wasn't just him. It was like more than that too. Going to public school really changed that. I was a little Catholic school boy, I had the scoliosis growing up, and then you do stretches and whatnot, but it's nothing like yoga, obviously. And you get into high school sports, and I think like the football workouts and just the amount of practices you do there and whatnot, just really like probably added up along the way. And I just really destroyed my body. Who knows? It's not even just, I can't even just say sports. You know how it is growing, playing in the neighborhood, jumping on trampolines, doing stone cold stunners off the freaking trampoline, frog splashes, swanton bombs, all that stuff. So I'm sure all that stuff added up and accumulated to and then I realized there was a point I would always throw my back out, and then I would be like 2 weeks and I'd be better, take some ibuprofen, lay down. And then one time I threw my back out. I'll never forget, it was in Jersey. I was like visiting my mom. I was at what's that? LA Fitness gym playing basketball. Threw my back out. Very normal of me to do, especially with playing basketball. Always does it, all the twisting and turning. But threw my back out there, and it just never got better. It stayed like I threw it out like for months, and then just kept on getting worse and worse. And then I don't know, I tried everything. I tried, like, the doctor told me to try losing some weight, try doing this and that. I did all the things. I did lose weight. And then finally I was like, you know what, fuck it. You hear all this about yoga. We're recording in the city here. You could probably hear it. I'm sure they hear it. But it's better than the homeless guy spitting bars earlier. Which actually, he should have been on. He should have been on.
Next guest.
I know. Damn, that would have been a good intro too. Fuck. But yeah, no, and then from that point, my girlfriend at the time, she was very into yoga, and I was kind of just being stubborn, like, how much could it actually work? You know what I mean? I'm like, whatever, I'm sure it does help, but it's not going to fix my problem. And then eventually I was just sick of being hurt, and I was like, all right, I have to give it a try. And I did it, and then like literally like probably like 2 months into it, I was like essentially healed. But it's one of those things where it's like you got to keep doing it, and then to hold that health. So, and I've just never stopped since. But I always say though, it's one of those things that I started for like to fix my injury. Which, by the way, just to say, like I went and got an MRI. It was a three herniated discs, L3, 4, and 5. So lumbar, lower back, and
I remember when I first came to my first class with you, I was like, what made you start doing this? And you were like, problems with my sciatic nerve, and I was like, that's why the fuck I'm here.
That's why I love that pigeon pose. That's
exactly.
So good for your sciatic nerve.
I always like to think that when you're instructing a class and we do pigeon pose, that like you put it in there because you knew I was coming. You know?
No, it's funny about the pigeon pose. It was like before I ever took yoga. Like I said, my ex, who was very into yoga, I was like, please just give me like one thing I should do that's gonna help me, and she showed me pigeon pose. And like I would just only do pigeon, and it would help. It would like, it would give me a couple hours of like relief to like move around and stuff. But but then it just you got to do way more than that. It was a core issue. It was building the strength and the core, which essentially helps to hold the spine in place, let more pressure off the spine, really. And but I always say now that I was like already like basically healed. I knew what I had to do to keep a healthy back, but I stayed because of what it was doing for me mentally.
Yeah, I mean, I remember you mentioning, and I'm going to use your terminology, not my
go
own,
ahead.
Which is that you said that like when you had your back problems, you were a piece of shit, which it can be a loose term and can mean a lot of things. But when that was the case, number one, how did you?
I was a cranky bastard.
And number one, how did you even become like aware of that? Because when you're living in pain, it's hard to realize that. And then how do you stick with that now? And when, you want to be pissed off or it's easy to fall into that depression, how do you bring yourself back to that?
I know, it's funny because it's like, just like anything, you fix one thing and you will find a way to accumulate more problems in your life. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, that's life for you right there. It's, you think you figured something out, you're like, oh, this is going to be life changing. Now, just because you fixed that, something else, you've opened a door to something else to like take its place. But yeah, how did I notice? I just knew after a while. When you're hours in a row, like, oh, can you do this for me? Do you mind doing that? All of a sudden, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm really just like being like so bossy, this, that, and the fourth, and yeah, it really was like that frustrating though. It was like, like I would always say things like, I would go in debt for the rest of my life and pay all the money I have and keep paying it to have a healthy back. And, at times, like, I'm not going to sit here and say like I was suicidal or anything, but you definitely have those times where you're like, literally, if I knew my rest of my life was going to feel like this and then get worse, I probably would like rather be dead. You know what I mean? Like one of those situations where you're like, fuck, if I have to live like this, then what's the point? Because it really is just miserable. But, it's just like anything. It's like, there's always a path to like fix your problems. And, some people just are, stubborn and like take longer. Everyone's different. But luckily I found the thing that helps me out. And like I said, now I just do it for mental health. And I could tell like when I start to get like, I get carried away, maybe I'll overindulge in eating or drinking or whatever, then that will lead to like, more problems that make me upset or whatever over time. And then I just know I just got to get my ass to a class and,
It's time to go.
And it's not enough just to teach it either, It's like you have to go take other people's classes, feel their energy, feel the class's energy. It all helps. We got a helicopter out here now.
Yeah.
This is a real urban episode. I love it, though. I love it. And also, thank you guys for bringing this to my backyard,
Yeah, thank you for having us.
No, yeah, no.
Nice setup we got
it's convenient for me,
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So, you were talking about your mental health with yoga and how that helps. Do you think yoga is what makes you so mindful? And how do you practice that like throughout your day, like in your regular day? How do you use mindfulness to like become aware of those situations that you were saying before would have like set you off a little bit?
Oh yeah, it comes into everything now. Like I remember like I'd be on the road driving like and almost instantly, you know what it was? It was teacher training for me. I started reading books. So when I got into teacher training and I was reading these books, it was all hitting home with me, all these things like these number of things I would learn from all these books. It just all made sense and it was clicking, and like I'd find myself in traffic and be like pissed off because it's moving too slow, like we all do, you know. But now it's like, it's funny, back in the day I would just stay in that and it would like stay with me throughout the day. And now like I will find myself getting upset in traffic, and then like I immediately will tell myself like, are you late? Like, what are you in a rush for? You're not late. You have nowhere to be right now. And like, so for that reason, like, it is what it is. Like, just shut up and deal with it, you know, rather than, because it really is like you're working yourself up and getting so pissed off about something that's not really like that big a deal. Like, you're going to get somewhere 3.5 minutes later, you know what I mean? So it's like, but yeah, it's situations like that where, or, you know, for example, I live here in the city of Newburgh. You know, every now and then you'll get like commotion of all sorts happening, and in that moment I'll be like, oh, this is annoying to deal with, and then I'm just like, no, it's not. It's just life happening, and you're getting upset with it because, you know, like, who are you? Like, you're not that important. Life is just going to keep happening. That was like the one thing I read in the book that was like one of my favorite things. Like my favorite quotes was like, you know, like all these noises around you that you think, well, you're reading a book inside. That's what they said. They were like, if you're reading a book inside and the lawnmower's going outside and you're like mad about it, and it's like, you getting mad is the disturbance. Mm-hmm. That lawnmower is just part of life and the whole collective happening. You getting upset is disturbing your flow. You know what I mean? So you start to look at it more like that. Like when shit goes wrong, you're like, well, this is just part of it. And you have to accept it. Otherwise, you just get upset and you hold yourself back. That really is all it is, you know?
So you're like big on being able to like tell when you're getting into those feelings and change out of them. Like, so what are a couple of things that like you say to yourself to get out, like, to what mood you like to switch into when you feel that coming on?
Yeah, it'll really just be a matter of like, is it that big a deal? You know, like the feeling you're feeling right now, is it that big a deal? You know? It could be anything too, man. It's like, you know, it really hits like in every aspect, like that feeling, you know, whether it's like, I'm trying to think of something that like we all like go through, you know, it could be like, oh, you know, I don't know. I don't have an example right off the top of my head, but
that's okay. That happens when you start recording. Trust me.
Yeah.
All your wittiness and all your
or maybe it's just like examples I really don't want to use because now it's like a podcast and, you know, who knows who the fuck watches it.
But I think what you're talking about a lot is like, why get mad about things that are outside of your control?
Wait, are we gonna mention how we all took an eighth of shrooms before this?
We forgot to mention that. Like, the end of this may be interesting.
I'm just joking. We didn't take shrooms.
Then we really be giving up control.
But I did want to start like that too and be like, all right, now that we took that eighth of shrooms each, let's go.
We do have plans to do like an episode like that.
Just be tripping balls.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, who knows how that'll turn out.
But you got to put so much intention into that.
That'll either be the best podcast ever or one you just scrap immediately. You're like, this can't happen.
There's only one way to find out, right?
My bad. I cut you off though. What were you saying?
No. You're good. You're good. What I was saying is that like I feel like when you find yourself getting upset about things like this, you have to ask yourself the question of, is this within my control or not? The commotion that's going on outside, the lawnmower that's running, the
helicopter going overhead.
Even if it's somebody else giving you a hard time or you're upset about something, like, ask yourself what's in your control.
Yeah.
And I think when you say something that like, is it a big deal or not? A lot of it is that, like, because
exactly.
And if you translate it to like, it's only a big deal if I can do something about it.
Yeah. And a lot of times the answer is always like, yeah, like there is times where exactly like you'll actually be able to physically do something to control a situation and make it better. But a lot of times it's like you controlling your self-control. You know what I mean? Like that's really what it ends up being.
We have no control over so many of the things that happen to us, but like you have 100% of it over the response.
The one thing you always have control over, whether you think you do or not, is your mind state. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's the thing I actually learned from yoga too, is like how incredibly powerful the mind really is. You know, you hear all these, like, to just say like the story I heard on, I actually heard it on Rogan, but he had Sadhguru on, and he told the story of the very first yogi, that's been recorded or whatever you want to call it. And I think it went back as far as like 10,000 years BC. like that long ago. And there's like stories of this dude like being able to sit perfectly still for a week straight of not eating or drinking. And the reason why is because you're in control of that much of, like, that's how in control you are of your body and your mind, where you could slow everything down. It makes sense to me that you'd be able to slow things down to that extent where you can, like, people are like, oh, you can't live without water for a day or whatever they say, you know? Yeah. But it's like, yeah, of course, if you're living your normal life and you're like panicking and you're like, you know, you're in the wilderness and you're freaking out. But if you like can actually like, you know, sit the fuck down, close your eyes, lose yourself, and like whatever you want to call it, meditation is really what it is. That's like what, you know, meditation's supposed to be, is just the ability to like find stillness and, you know, like lose yourself, like almost like, you know, lose that feeling of like you're in the present world, you know what I mean? Like, but that thing, so yeah, that story is like he was able to sit there for whatever weeks on end and not eat or drink. Who knows if it's true or not, but I know it's true that you can at least do that to an extent farther than what people tell us we can do, you know, through the power of the mind.
Yeah.
So
me and JP are both big on meditation. Like, I know me and him do it every day. What is your daily routine like? Do you like take time ahead of the day to meditate?
So meditation for me is kind of doing yoga in a lot of ways. And that's like what yoga I feel like was actually made for. People think it's like, oh, it's like to stretch and get limber, which that does improve the quality of your life. So it makes sense like in that way too. But really yoga was just like, they just developed movements that, you know, were made to keep you in the moment, you know, like, you know how it is, like, and you said you took a hot class, you took a hot class recently, and you said, you know, you were dripping sweat and like things were like, you know, in that moment, all you could think about is what the fuck you're doing. You're not like, what am I going to eat later? You're just like, fuck my leg, my this. It's all you in that moment. You know what I mean? So that's like kind of like, yeah. So in that, for that reason, like, I guess in a way, yoga is like my meditation. But sometimes like, you know, I find myself in a really good mind state because of probably practicing, where I will then, like, there's been times I've like ridden my bike to Beacon and sat at the park, and I literally just sit there, close my eyes, and I'm like, and I'm just like listening to the sounds of the park, feeling the wind and the sun on you, and that's like kind of, you know, those are like the little tricks to like bring yourself into that present moment, is just like feel the senses, you know, like sit still and feel what's around you, like hear what's happening, feel what's happening, smell what's happening, all that stuff, you know.
Yeah, I think that that's what scares a lot of people about meditation, is that they think it has to be like this structured, perfect like thing where like you have, you know, and I think it's good to have like a specific corner of the room and a specific time you do that. I think that helps a lot of people, but I think people get caught up in that, like, oh, if I miss my 8:15 meditation and I didn't do it, like now my whole day is screwed up. And like the exact point of meditation is that you should be able to, you know, even if you get 1 minute in the elevator on your way up to work, or whatever it is, like it's not just, it's an act.
Showering could be like a meditation, you know, like
you said,
that moment in the shower where you get to like just sort of like be in the water, you know, in the hot water, the cold water, whatever it is. Cold baths are a way of keeping your ass present too.
Even eating is one. Like people don't even realize, like, this is something I've been meditating for years,
That's
and it's
true.
just like, you know, you don't even realize that you're eating.
Yeah, I like that, because like you be eating a bomb-ass meal and all you're just thinking about is that next bite. You're just like, oh, it's just so good, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like you're not like really thinking that much when you're enjoying food, and you know,
you're not. Well, it's doing anything mindfully, you know.
And what helps to do it mindfully too is in the food aspect, which like I like that you brought that up, is sometimes like, you know, things like fasting or like working out to build hunger rather than eating just because you're bored, which I'm very guilty of. Like if I have too much time on my hands, I will eat for no reason, you know.
I'm so bad at night.
It's right, that's sort of a way of that tells you that, you know, that's sort of a problem, you know what I mean? That means you're not in control of, like, you can't just sit there and deal with what's going on. You're just like, I need this distraction, and sometimes food is that distraction.
My problem is, it's like I can either not have it at all, or I have to have all of it.
Yeah.
I'm not a person that has like 2 cookies before bed. I have the whole fucking sleeve of cookies, or I don't eat anything.
Same. Last night I was sitting on my couch, full, and it was probably an hour and a half after I've ate, and I just was like having a 15-minute conversation with myself, like, are you gonna have a bowl of cereal right now, or are you gonna go the fuck to bed? And I'm just like, and it's funny how you sit there and we'll be like, just thinking about it, like, oh, the cereal, that sounds so good, but it's like, you're full, you don't need it. Thankfully, I did go to sleep without that bowl of cereal, but I'll tell you, 9 out of 10 times I'm probably having that bowl of cereal. Or it's not just to say it's only cereal. It'll be like, you know, like, who knows? Like, the thing about me is I live alone, right? I live alone.
Called it at least once.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath.
You see, I'm like desensitized to it. Yeah, I know, exactly.
I live right in Marlborough. I'm like right by where I live in Marlborough. I'm like right next to the firehouse.
Oh, the firehouse, yeah.
So when there's a fire, that siren goes off like crazy.
Yeah.
And it goes off at least once a day at noon, every single time. And if you're outside,
And here goes a fire truck right now, I think.
if you're outside, that shit will ruin your day.
This is like Hey Arnold out here, huh? I know, yeah. My first apartment ever was at right there on the Ann and Grand. So that's right across from the firehouse right there. And it was like a few times a day.
Yeah.
When they leave, they have to sign, as they do it
Yeah.
everywhere, right? Like when they leave, they put the sirens on, you know. But yeah, what? I was gonna say, like, I live here alone, so I know myself. When I grocery shop, I like purposely don't buy shit because I'll eat it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll try to buy healthy foods. But with that, I'll be like, I'll have granola bars, you know, which aren't healthy, but it's better than Oreos. Yeah. And I'll have like Nature Valley granola bars. And, you know, and it's like, it's funny. I'll have peanut butter and that. And like all of a sudden I'm like smearing peanut butter on Nature Valley, making a chocolate milk and dipping it. You know what I mean? I'll do what I can to dope it up to make it like delicious. But, and sometimes you're like, I'll just have another one right after that because I just have no self-control. But yeah, food is drugs, man. Food is drugs.
Especially the food we make today, man.
And I'm such a foodie, man. I'm such a foodie. So it's like, you know, yeah. I'm
even when I go out
fiend.
to eat, man. Like when I go out to eat, it's like we got you.
Oh,
me
yeah.
and you go out to eat all the time together. It's always like we've never gone out to eat and not gotten an appetizer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Easy.
Like the shit, like
who
what we
are these
did
people that
what we
don't
did
get
at the plate
appetizers?
At Orange Hill the other day.
On Monday, we just like ordered mad food on Monday, like, and both of us got our entrees, and I literally asked the waiter, I was like, can you just bring us a box? Like, I'm not eating this.
Yeah. Who are these people that don't have appetizers? I don't understand it. Like, especially if you're out with friends, like, come on, we got to get some fucking appetizers, man.
Yeah.
Gotta wet the beak a little bit, you know what I mean? But you know, but going out and eating is totally different because it's like, you know, that is the time to indulge and enjoy it and like have fun, whatever. But it's like that at home when you have too much time on your hands is like is like kind of the problem, you know. When you go out too much, that's when the money it hits the pockets more than anything. You know what I mean? Because I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like I said, I live alone, so like I'll run out of groceries, and I'm just too lazy to go grocery shopping. So I'm like eating out, door dashing, grabbing shit on the way home constantly. I'll like eat for like 2 weeks straight of like my breakfast and dinner is straight like takeout. You know, and after a while you're like, all right. But you know what? Groceries is so expensive right now. It kind of evens out anyway.
It is really bad.
Right? Yeah.
So
what else you got for me here?
so this is the big one. Ready? So
All right.
this is gonna be a long one. So what is?
I'm just joking when I say I'm not like really pressing the issue. I'm just
No.
messing
We know.
around.
We do it to each other.
I'm holding back. So I like I said, I told you. I listen to so many like fucked like my guilty pleasure podcast wise is like comedy.
Okay.
And all of that is really based in like saying ridiculously disgusting and shocking things a lot of times. So it's like, you know, I don't know. I have a sick sense of humor sometimes because of that, but yeah, so it's like I know it's like it's funny because this is like a very like mental health podcast, and I'm like, you know, I started off almost saying like retarded. But, you know.
There it is. There it is. We got it.
I'm putting it in context. Take it easy. I mean, I think of myself as retarded constantly. I don't know what, like, so sue me. I don't know. Yeah. No, I'm, I don't know what to say, but, you know, I don't know. All right, yeah. Before it goes deeper into that,
yeah. So going off that
get me
topic,
out of
let's
this.
get back to the board here. So, man,
I'm already having mad fun too.
We really know you're into yoga and like you have your own podcast. Caution is the airwaves, right?
Yeah, caution to the airwaves.
Yeah, we'll look it up. Definitely listen. Give
It's
it
a play
listen.
on words. I don't know if you ever heard caution to the wind. Like sometimes, like in boxing, they'll be like, "Oh, he's throwing caution to the wind," or it's just like the way in which he's throwing his punches, insinuating he's throwing it really viciously and violently. So he's throwing caution to the wind. So caution to the airwaves. Airwaves play on radio, sort of. You know. Yeah.
So you're big into the podcasting. You do yoga. Really like UFC.
Yep.
What would you say is like how? What's your why? Like, why are you so passionate about those things? Like, how did you get into them? Why are you so into them? Like, what do you want to do moving forward with them?
That's a good question. I like that. Yeah. It's funny because I guess I'll start with like MMA, right? Because it's like it's really just MMA and boxing and fighting, combat sports is very interesting to me because it's like it's the only sport where like I always like one-on-one sports too. Like I'm a big tennis guy, you know, we've talked about tennis and stuff too. But like fighting is so different, right? Like just think about it cuz it's like it's wild. It's like two dudes that are given like you sign a contract to be like, all right, you're gonna fight this guy this date. Do you accept? Yeah. And do you accept? Yeah. All right, you both accept. Now it's like, let's say it's 3 months. Now you have 3 months to like train your ass off and rest the amount of time too, because that's another important thing. You know, like sometimes people are like, it's crazy. The mental game of fighting is so wild because someone might be so insecure that they think that they need to train extra. But really, they don't realize that they might be like doing a disservice to themselves, hurting their bodies. So there's like a fine line of balancing, like resting and training. And the whole time you're thinking about this person that's doing the same thing. And then you come together and you get in a fist fight. You know what I mean? In front of people. And like, let's just talk about UFC. Like that's millions of people watching on that night and an arena full of people in there, yet chanting, drunk, whatever the fuck. And you're like in the backstage for hours like leading up to it. It's just so like I love that mental aspect of like you see it sometimes. They come out in the walkouts and you're just like, oh, this guy's nervous. Oh, this guy's confident. Oh, this guy like seems like he's second guessing, but then it starts and it's like, oh no, that's just like his way of like leading into it. And it's like it's just like, and not every night's gonna be your night. And like compared to other sports where it's like, you know, in basketball, football, it's like, yeah, they're very hard on your body, but it's like, you know, for the most part, you don't have to worry about maybe getting knocked out. I guess in football you kind of do, but now they have rules against that, and it's like, and it's a team sport. It's like you lose, you get another chance next week to come back and do it again, or maybe the next day. Baseball, you have the same day sometimes, you know, these games.
Just to be clear, you're saying that football players are sissies, right?
Well, put it this way. There's been some football players that have gotten into UFC, and there's not too many that have done too well. One to say that did do well, and I'm only calling him a football player because he... Yeah. All right, but to be fair, to defend him, he was an all-American wrestler, and wrestling is one of the main things that like help you in mixed martial arts. It's like between wrestling and jiu-jitsu are like two things that are going to keep you safe a lot of times in MMA. Yeah, and he became champion pretty quickly. That was also in a time of the sport where it was still developing, and it was almost like the boom of like where we were starting to see real talent come in, you know. In the beginning it was very barbaric and like, you know, hit or miss, I guess, and like matchups. That's what the UFC does very well too, is they get the right talent and make the right matchups to where it's always entertaining and always interesting, you know. I mean, you've seen the fights that have been happening lately. Like, I know you guys like don't watch it all the time, but we're talking about like John Jones is coming up. He's fighting Stipe, you know. You see, now I'm just going. This shows right here, like the passion aspect, right? Because like,
yeah. So then, like, what's your favorite part then of having caution to the airwaves and being able, like, you know, because like a lot of the times, like, your picks are right, like.
Well,
what do you feel like you gain? Like personally, mentally.
It's funny because like in that, just to touch on that, like as far as the picks, yeah, like maybe the majority of the picks for the night will be right, but the one that I'll feel the most certain about will end up being the loss. And I'm like, well, fuck, no one saw that coming. Just recently, Israel Adesanya just lost to Sean Strickland, and Israel is like, everyone thought it was just gonna be lights out. I was on the podcast saying, like, you know what? I just can't think of one possible way that this guy fucking wins. And I was just like, so I guess we're just going to watch a beating and this will be that. And then he lost. And then it's like, well, that's the sport for you right there. On any given night, Israel didn't seem to be himself that night. Maybe there was something a little off there. Sean Strickland seemed to just stick to his plan and it looked very confident. Sounded good going into the fight, and he pulled out the win. And for that reason, that'll turn me into a fan too. I'm not one of these guys. That bothers me about the sport is these people that are like, oh, I fucking hate that guy. And I'm like, you hate that guy? Why do you hate that guy? And I'm like, oh, you know, the way he's... I'm like, yeah, but like, put aside his style or the shit he says. Like, at the end of the day, he's working out and he's getting in there and he's like giving it his best. It's like, for that reason alone, I can never hate someone, you know? But, yeah, it's just, yeah, it's interesting. I forget what the question was already now, though.
It was, what was it? It was like, what kind of meaning and what do you like about, like, hopping on the podcast and being able to, like, share your opinions about it and get feedback from other people? Like, what do you like about it?
I was telling you guys before we even started rolling here how it really just came from a place of, like, I didn't get to hang out with enough people to talk to them about the events that have been going down because it's just like it's just sits inside me and I'm like, oh, I just have like so much to say about it and I just have so much like, you know, I want to hear other people that are fans and their ideas and like maybe because I could be persuaded like on opinions and whatever the fuck on like the fight and how it went or this and that. So yeah, I like talking about it and I'm just like, you know what, like I can't sit here and rely on a friend to be here to talk to all the time. So it's just, you know, I love podcasts. I love listening to them and I was like, let me just see who can help me get it done. What do I need to buy? And I could do this once a week and that'll kind of settle my craving for talking about it. Yeah.
Well, and it's very interesting because you went about this in a very different way than we did when we had, you know, having a podcast is not an original idea, but when like we actually sat down and we're like, no, we want to really do this. Like,
I'm noticing now your mic's not that close to your face. I have a feeling just by looking at it that audio is not going to sound as good as mine.
I
is
better
right now.
get closer.
Yes.
Oh, there it is.
See, I'm mad. I kind of like this though. It kind of shows you where we're at and stuff. It's pretty sick. Is the time on that too? Yeah.
Oh, we can.
Does it show time?
We're at the 32-minute marker right now.
Yeah, that also now. Damn, it's funny. This is podcasting for you too. A lot of times in the lead up, I'm sure you guys will have this too. You guys will like going into a podcast. You'll be like, I have like exactly what I want to say. I know how I want to start it. I know what I want to say, and then all of a sudden, enough time goes by and you just forget, or you just like forget how you want to say it, or you start to say what you once thought about, and it doesn't come out as good as you thought it.
I also find that when you like it's I think we've learned that having structure is good and it helps us to have like a roadmap.
Yeah.
But like,
notes do help. It does help to
for sure.
write some notes down.
But if you have like this moment in your mind or this exact thing that you want to say, like I promise that when it comes out like butchered, forced, whatever
Yes.
the more that you think that like you try to come up with something that you think is going to be good, like when we oftentimes find that like what we thought would be the best moment from the podcast like didn't sound the way we thought it would, and that's something that we totally underestimated is actually a really great moment.
That's literally just going to be part of it. And I'll tell you this firsthand, this bothers me a lot about talking about bringing it back to yoga and teaching it for me. I will go about my day, like I said, I have these moments, maybe I like something like I've been in a park practicing with myself. That kind of sounds wrong. Practicing by myself, and I'll have like these or on a hike. I'll be on a hike and I'll have these like epiphany like thoughts that are like changes my whole day, and I feel so good, and I'm like, man, like this is why I do these kind of things, because it really just puts me in this right mental mind state. And I'll be like, I'm gonna bring this to the class. I'm gonna use this as a Dharma talk, and if I could just convey this right, and if they hear it the way that I thought it, it'll be life changing for them too. But it's a whole nother monster being there in the moment, cameras rolling, or in front of a class of people and saying what you want to say. And there's been many times where I've been embarrassed, like internally, because I start to want to say something and it comes out jumbled and I just kind of rush over it, or I literally just pause and freeze and just say, never mind, and keep it going. And it's like, but also, you know, that's the other thing we were talking about before, as far as like I was talking about the whole being in traffic or changing your mind state when you get upset. And this one's even harder, being embarrassed or what's the other word I was just thinking? Just feeling vulnerable, you know, that feeling of, yeah, like, or you know how sometimes like it could be even like, yeah, like to even put it in normal terms for anyone, like maybe you reach out to like someone you have a crush on, like whether it's a girl or a boy. I'm sure you guys got female listeners too. You got a girlfriend. Actually, we know at least she's. Do you guys parents listen at all?
I don't know if my parents have. My mom does.
That's funny because I just asked that because my mom obviously like she'll like listen to like mine too. Although I feel like she's falling off lately. I think she's like starting to get tired of the MMA talk, but she's a fan though. She's a fan of the MMA talk, but now it's just becoming normal to her. But see, I get off track now and I forget what I'm saying. Oh, but that feeling of being vulnerable, that's a harder one to get over, right? Because I'll tell myself on the ride home from a class or something, I'll be like, oh, you're so like you fucked up, and this, and then it makes you not want to do it anymore because you're like, God, that was so embarrassing. And to bring it back to, I love relating yoga to stand-up comedy too, because you always hear stand-up comedians talk about like bombing, you know, like you're on stage and like imagine that, like delivering jokes and no one's laughing. It's like, and then you go home that day and you're like, fuck, like that was the worst feeling ever. I was so embarrassed. I mumbled, I stuttered, I did this and that, and I try to tell myself, I'm like, that's just life. And everyone says like that just shows how your human side of messing up. And I try to like, I do laugh at myself, but then like a few minutes later I'm like, oh, like cringing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a tough one to get over, that cringe factor, right? I think everyone kind of goes through that to an extent.
I think the big thing with it like that though is like that's how you know you're progressing. If you can look at something and cringe about the way that you reacted to it or the way you acted to it, you know that you're like developing, like you're growing.
They usually say it means that you care. If you feel that feeling, it means that you care. But I just like to say that I feel retarded. But no, I mean we could edit that out if you want. I don't care.
We put pineapples in when we say something.
Oh
wrong.
Yeah, all right. So I'm a big pineapple when it comes to these moments, or I feel like that about myself, and yeah, it's like, but you know, that's the thing. That's the thing too. I love about like as far as like I love the idea of this podcast because it's like these are the things that no one talks about, and it's for a reason because everyone feels like embarrassed or vulnerable to talk about it, but it's like really the truth. And the more you don't talk about it, the more it's just going to happen, I feel like, too. It's like, I love podcasting for this reason. It's almost like you're talking out ideas. Yeah. You're kind of like, you know, I don't know. It's like you're working through things.
It's very much therapy for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I pointed this out in the last episode that we recorded, that I find that us being here and me and you doing this, and like this is our first episode with a guest, but like we've gotten so much out of it that our conversations outside of this have gotten much deeper. And there is like, there's a certain amount of like vulnerability that comes with this that you don't know like how it's going to come out. But there's also a certain thing that like sometimes you get into a really good flow of conversation and you don't even realize that you're recording.
Yeah.
And you're just like you're having, and that idea would never have came to you if you weren't holding a microphone.
Yeah, it's true.
And talk and sitting down purposely with your friend to talk about something like this.
Yeah, because every now and then it's like, you know, you're like on mic or whatever, and you start an idea, and you don't even have a time to think about like, is this going to be good or not to say? But it's like, oh, I've already started it. May as well keep going. There's something about it where it just forces it out of you. But yeah, it's. Yeah, now I forgot. I was gonna. This is what I was gonna say before is.
It's all good, man.
It all goes back. This is like probably like already 15 minutes ago at this point. But I wanted to start the podcast by saying, "Hey, who thought we'd be here?" But it's kind of true because it's funny. It's like, you know, like you said, like I knew you. I met you through high school, right? And then or maybe even middle school. And did you go to Heritage? Yeah, you went to Heritage. So that's what I thought. And JP I knew from. You know, since Little League, town of Newburgh, like real young. Your dad was like my coach. Yeah. Multiple years we played together. Oh yeah.
Multiple years. Will was one of his favorite picks. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember the one year the Diamondbacks was the most legendary year.
We were just talking about that, yo.
Yeah, We won the championship.
Like we won the championship 21-3. We
It was the first year I ever hit a home run. Like I remember, like home runs.
That team was so good too, bro.
And like I said, I had my growth spurt early, so I was a big kid for. I remember they wanted to move me up. My whole life, they've been trying to move me up ahead of my time, and I always hate that. Like people say it's like a good thing, but it's like no, it's like I have to have time to learn in these levels. Like you can't just put me in with the like at the time. What is it? It's the one before juniors, intermediate.
We were in majors. Yeah, we were
majors.
In majors.
That's what it is.
I think you were probably. I was like 11 and you were probably 12.
Yeah. I remember I was like having like home run derby every game with like Joe Consorti. He was like the other one that was like hitting nukes out there. Your brother too. Your brother was hitting nukes. Yeah. I mean, you as well. You were a good baseball player.
I wasn't a home run hitter though.
But I think you were the better baseball player.
I was very well rounded. I will say that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was. My dad used to be like, "Your brother's not a 5-tool player, but you are."
I mean. That's funny.
But that brings me into like a good point that we wanted to ask you about. I yanked on the cord. I thought that maybe it came out.
Never know.
Which is that like, even us, like we never thought that we would be here, like having a podcast, trying to get better mentally, just considering like the environment we grew up in and like how we carried ourselves, like, and we kind of thought that would resonate with other people, that people would be like, who thought they'd be there.
Newburgh kind of makes you a little rough as a child, right? Like you sort of have to have your guard up in Newburgh.
Oh yeah, for sure. But
you get made, but I think that's kids in general, but Newburgh especially. Like, there's a lot of making fun. There's a lot of playing jokes.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of teasing, a lot of bullying, a lot of everything. Like,
and I'm very grateful for that. Like, skin, developing, toughness developing. But I was gonna say is that like obviously, like yes, a back issue is what brought you to yoga.
Yeah.
But like, just considering like we've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
And anybody, including my dad, who I said it to when I first started going to yoga, is just like, Will Buk is a yoga
teacher.
Yeah. So, like, what is your relationship to when you look back at yourself? I don't know. You've been doing this for how long?
It's crazy. Not even 2 years. About a year and a half now.
So like before that, and even beyond, like into like your formative years. Like, how do you think you've grown with that relationship of where you thought you would be in life and where you are now?
One, I love it because it's like it doesn't need to be like your thing all the time. Like a lot of people feel this pressure to be like figure out your thing, and like my dad is one of these people who has always been like like my dad's not a sports guy, by the way. So my whole upbringing, he could care less if I was playing or not playing sports. So my mom was very supportive of sports. My dad wasn't. But like my dad was very much always that like, oh, like what are you gonna do? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm like, I'm a junior in high school. I don't know, And then he'll be like, well, then if you got to figure out a trade or something. And he's just like pressing like you have to get this figured out. But like I like the idea of just being open to like the moment when it presents itself of opportunity, because some people, and I think some people find their thing early, and that's awesome. Like I'm very jealous of that in a lot of ways. Like how many people do we know like knew from before high school as a kid what the hell like they wanted to go for, and they're doing it, and it's like fuck, that's so awesome, and that's probably great, and I'm like couldn't be prouder, especially for friends that that do it. Like I love that for them. But like unfortunately I was just one of those people where I'm like I have no idea. I love sports, and like for the longest I'm like outside of sports I really don't know what I want to do. Like my only plan was to go play football in college and or basketball, and obviously like things happen, you get hurt, things don't work out how you want. You're like, now what do I want to do? Well, I don't know. What do I want to do? I want to be a lawyer? I don't know. Do I want to be a like whatever the fuck it's hard. I'm like I really don't know what I want to be. And and for that reason I guess like you really just gotta, it's one of those things where you just like you do what you can. You just like you do the things that make sense. Like you stay in shape. Like I think that's like a lot of times a lot of people's first, right? Find fitness, get your head straight, and then through doing these things you kind of start to clear the clouds a little bit, and opportunities show up, and you're a little bit more prepared to say yes or no to the thing. You know what I mean? So it's interesting in that way. That's how like yoga, like my teacher, like I did it for, like I said, I did it to fix my back. I did it to eventually keep a clear headspace. And then my teacher was just like, you know, you should do yoga teacher training. And I'm like, why? Like, no, I'm okay just practicing. And she's like, no, you're into it. You ask a bunch of questions. I think you would be good at it. And I'm like, thank you, but like, I can't be a yoga teacher. Me? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like you said, like, it's like, that sounds silly to me.
Was it like
silly.
battling with that inner idea of what you thought you were going to be when you were younger that made you feel that
No,
way?
not at all. Had nothing to do with being as like younger. And that's what I'm trying to get at is like, it's like, I don't hold it to this thing where it's like, this is my life now and this is who I am and what I do. I'm like, no, this is just a tool that I've added to my life. And I love it. I do love that aspect of like bringing to the table the thing that changed my life, and just in hopes that someone gets to take my class, and whether it's with me or someone else, like I hope that they have that same feeling that I did. And like that's really all like I kind of do it for. I also do it just because it's like, yeah, I guess it's like, it is what I like to do now. And it's like, why not? Also, it comes with like free yoga, you know?
Yeah. Can't beat that.
Yeah, no, seriously, you know what I mean?
Classes
Like,
are not cheap.
and that wasn't like anything to do with the selling point. It's funny, like I always talk about this moment that I was like, okay, because she would bring it up. Shout out Delia, Yoga High. She was the first teacher I ever went to that did yoga. I did yoga with. And she was the one that noticed it in me and was like, you should do it. And I said no to her like over a dozen times. And finally it was getting closer and closer to teacher training. And she was like, yeah, so are you going to do it or what? And like, it was starting 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, and I was like, no, honestly, I was like, I got so much going on. You start making those excuses. You're like, I'm a little tied up financially. I got a lot going on in my life. You know, I appreciate it though. And then all of a sudden everyone in the class started like seriously like turning around with like serious faces, was like, you should do it. And I'm like, I don't know. And everyone's like, no, seriously, you should do it. And like the whole class is like looking at me at this point. I'm like, fuck, I mean, and then I just had that moment where I'm like, well, if this isn't just like the world is literally trying to tell me like more than one person, like the energy is like, I should do it. And I'm like, then it just hit me. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't even need to teach, but I could do the teacher training because I do love it. And I'm interested to find out more, because when you do teacher training, it's not just about learning how to teach downward facing dog or the proper technique of this and that. That's literally like the last thing you learn. You do a little practicing along the way, but it really is all about the studies of like where yoga started, and like also like those things. Like it really is just learning life is what it really is. Like I said, those moments of like, you know, how to handle your mind, how to like balance things out more. That's what you really learn in teacher training, is like these books and teachings, how to like balance your life, keep your mind straight, blah blah blah. But yeah, so yeah, and it's funny, it's like, yeah, now I'm a yoga teacher, and to someone that's not familiar with me, up to date, when they hear that, they're like, what? But like to me now, it's become so normal. I'm just like, yeah, I love it. I would tell anybody in the world to do it, and it is what it is. Yeah, it's like it's no longer like that thing that like, oh, it's like a class full of females that like come to stretch and do workouts. Like, no, it's way bigger than that. And to drop a fact on you, yoga was started by a male.
Four men
In the beginning, where females weren't even allowed to do it.
Yeah.
I think something like that. But like, I know at the very least it was started by a man, 4 men.
Yeah.
And yeah, and a lot of the gurus in India and all that stuff, like they're all males, you know what I mean? And it's if anything, it's just in the Western part of the world, like aka America really, where it's become this like fitness thing for females. I think it's a fitness friendly thing for females, for fitness. But ultimately it's like we all could use a little less stress physically on our bodies, and that's just a thing that helps you with that. So yeah.
So we were talking before about like where like lifestyle and drinking and stuff. Like what's your balance of that right now? Like,
yeah, this is something I want to like.
How much into yoga are you, and how much into still doing the other things like partying are you? And do you think that balance, like do you think it's evenly balanced, or do you find yourself sometimes fuck, I should drop this?
I'm a roller coaster. I am that guy. I'm like a lot of people that really know me will tell you that I'm just like a man of extremes, you know. I'm like, you know, extreme, like whatever, hiking, fitness, biking, or then I'll be extreme eating, drinking, partying, whatever the fuck. And so hold on, I just had this thought about how I wanted to bring this up, because so this is what I'll say about it. When I was younger, I was like in high school, I was way more of a stoner. I was like way more pot heavy, and alcohol did not sit right with me. I didn't like drinking necessarily. It would like make me feel inflamed. I would feel uncomfortable in my own skin when I did it. And I never felt like good being in like a party setting in a room full of people drinking. I would always be the guy at the party that would be like, I'd have a beer in my hand, but I'd be more trying to find who's trying to get the scythe going outside. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Who wants to rap battle me?
True. And you know what? Those were always some funny ass moments. Yeah.
Get a Jay-Z type beat, please.
Seriously though, that's so funny. Like pull out the instrumentals, get it going. But but hold on, I got a burp coming. Now it's stuck. No, they're not coming. All right. Now these moments are good. I've realized it's like these are fun moments to keep in.
Yeah, not everything is supposed to be like this perfect flow of conversation. Like
at the beginning, that we were like, damn, like we would talk the whole time and just try and fill up the space, and we're like, the fuck, dude? Oh, I don't need to be talking for the whole hour and 7 minutes. If I want to. If I want to do breath work, I'm going to do breath work for like a couple seconds. You know?
Now I just noticed too, because you guys are sharing mics. There's been multiple times that you were saying a sentence and then like half of it was not in.
Yeah.
So
we're learning right now too.
I'm over here like this is kind of going great, and then you're gonna look back, you're like half your questions are not even there. It's just like yeah. So
I think yeah. It's just hard because I think that we're very much used to bouncing back and forth, and that has become very natural.
Yeah.
And now like we have to kind of like, oh, we're getting ready to say something here.
I keep asking you a question and then being done with my question, so I give him the mic.
Yeah.
But I want to respond when you answer me. And
giving it away prematurely. But yeah, no, just to like go back to that thing, like, so like I said, I was never like a drinker in the beginning, and like not to get too deep into it or be real about it too, but like my dad was always a heavy drinker or whatnot, and like, you know, sometimes he'd be fun and sometimes it was just like cringe or unattractive the way he would do it. And so I think like for that reason also I was never like, it was always like kind of a turn off with drinking or whatever. But it's funny because once I started doing like yoga and like I fixed my body, because I said like the drinking would also affect like the back, all that stuff, you know, when I had my injuries. And all of a sudden, you know, I find myself, I'm doing yoga, I'm in a healthier body, I'm in a healthier mind state. And then all of a sudden, drinking was fun to me. And it's because I was more confident and I was more at ease with my insecurities, I think, where now I could be out in a setting with people and I felt okay. Like I felt good in my skin. And now I used to think like, oh yeah, alcohol just doesn't do well with me. Like it does something physically to my body that just doesn't sit well with me. And then it really was just a mind state thing, because now it's like I said, now if I find myself out, I'm a little bit more, you know, secure with myself and confident, to where sometimes I find a flow and I feel good and I'm over the top, you know, I'm like, I love this. I'm like, I'm free, I'm fun, I'm this and that. But now in the beginning that was great, and you started to feel that attraction where people are like, oh, he's a fun guy, this and that. But just like anything, you get too much of that stuff and you get carried away with it, and you're going to have these nights where you're like, well, you kind of wilded out last night. You fucking yelled at so-and-so. You fucking, you know, like, you pissed off this person. You got into a debate with that person. And those moments, you kind of, you know, you kind of wake up and you remember it and you like start to cringe at yourself again. You're like, oh, that wasn't even me. Why did we go down that road? Now they probably think I'm this asshole or I'm this person. And I feel like, I don't know, is that relatable? Do people like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you have a night of drinking and you like, you get a little too out of control, and it leads to like some just unfortunate conversations and situations where you're like, oh, well, fuck, I just kind of put a bad image of myself out last night that I'm not happy with myself. And you're like, well, you have to live with that consequence of possibly the world thinking of you this way. But again, it's really up to you to be like secure enough to be like, no, that's not you, and you got to work on it. You got to balance it. So this is something I was going to bring up too, and I'm curious what you think, especially you because you're sober right now, and you because you're not sober. And you, like, what would you say, real quick, just as a question, your drinking level? Like,
I'm strictly like social drinking.
yeah, okay.
Like I'm only having drinks if I'm like going out with friends or stuff like that.
So you never come home after a long day and you're like, before dinner, it'd be nice to like have like two beers.
Oh no,
yeah.
I never drink at home.
Okay.
I never drink, even if I want to. I just
Yeah.
never do. It just doesn't appeal to me. I don't know why.
Oh yeah, he started. Yeah, we just got our first appearance with the dogs here. They loved, or at least Bronson
He's,
loves
like,
to rub
pushing
his
up on
back on the
yeah,
butt
he's
of
like
the
pushing
seat.
up underneath.
Bronny, come here, come here. But go ahead. Sorry.
No, but I mean, I would
Watch the
say
cord,
that
though.
like.
Pull it up so he could go underneath it. Or yeah, there you go.
You can go if you want.
Come here, come here.
Go on.
Come here.
Go on.
He's not gonna come to me now because he thinks I'm gonna discipline him. Yams, come here. Come here. All right, whatever.
You guys are chilling, right? I mean, yeah, like
Yeah,
Right
you gave
on.
him too much attention, and
Right on
now
the-
he's gonna really.
right on the. I would say
Steve,
that like
call him. He'll come to you.
I'm like having,
No,
you
we're
know,
not.
usually after like my second drink, I'm good.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll
And this
have-
is out while you're out.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And just because like what I've realized a lot of one of the things that I love about cutting back on drinking
Yeah.
is that like I can drive home free of like the guilt or the worry
Yeah.
of like I'm gonna get pulled over and my life is gonna get ruined.
Different, yeah.
Like so like I kind of just and I also put it in the sense I'm waking up earlier now. Like I used to be sleeping in till 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Or now I say that like that's the afternoon, but
Yeah.
but now I'm up at like 7, 8 o'clock, and on days that I drink, it's very clear to me that I wake up later at like 8:30, 9, even like pushing it to like 10 o'clock
Yeah.
sometimes. And like almost every single time that I drink, I never am like, oh, I'm glad I drank that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm glad I went and hung out with my friends and had
Yeah.
a good time, and I guess the drinking is part of that. And
Yeah.
like, I'm also like, I don't know. I've never like I'm doing sober October, by the way,
Yeah.
too. So
Okay.
I'm not drinking at all, at least for this whole
Nice.
month. Like I did the same thing last year because like I just don't want to deal with Halloween.
Yeah.
And it's a great excuse
Yeah. Yeah.
to like just not drink at all. But like I've severely cut back, I'd say over the last month, but like I probably haven't like I haven't like I'm usually I'm funny enough, I'm usually like when I get drunk enough I'll puke. Like that's
Oh,
the
yeah?
way it'll go, and I probably haven't puked from drinking this entire year.
Okay. Yeah. So you've like kind of learned to balance it a little bit better.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
and also realizing that like now I'm not bartending anymore
Yeah.
either. So like I used to think that like I had to drink kind
Yeah.
of like to keep the party going and
Yeah.
to like make everybody feel comfortable,
Yeah.
like especially if it's like after hours and people are hanging out. But then I just really, like I said, like I'm like I never drink at home, even when like I was drinking a lot when like we lived together. We still didn't drink a lot. I still didn't drink a lot at home. I still didn't drink a lot at home.
Bad hangovers will turn me off from drinking for a while. But yeah, the opposite of kind of what you're saying. I have like this fucked up, maybe it comes from my pops, I don't know, but I have this fucked up gene where for whatever reason, like I hold it well. Like I could drink all night and I don't get usually sick, or it takes a whole.
I get sick the next day usually.
The
I
next
don't usually
day?
get sick that night.
It takes a very weird mixture of drinks for me to like get sick,
Yeah.
And it's happened, and especially like I'm telling you, like I'm being honest here, saying I found myself in a more drinking mood these days.
Yeah.
Not even specifically saying these days, but since compared to my past, this year or last year, I would say it probably started like last year, maybe even a year before that. About last year though, I really got kind of like ramped up, like it's noticeable change. But yeah, now I'm trying to balance that feeling now with it of like I want to be able to have like you're saying those couple drinks where you're with friends and you're able to drive home and know that you're not risking something and be content with that. And maybe every now and then like life like will throw you those moments, those epic nights or whatever you want to call them, where it just gets like humbles you. It really that's what they're
Yeah.
for. It's like to more humble you.
I always say like everything in moderation, because I used to be
Yeah.
the type where it's like, I'm not going out for a beer.
Yeah.
I'm going out for like a case of beer. Like, where it's like, and I always talk about like this cycle, and you probably know what I mean, which is that like, okay, so like you have your first 2 drinks, and you get to the first like dividing point of the night, which is like, do I stop now and I can drive home completely free of any guilt, or like, should I have another one? And then you have to, and you get to maybe like 4 or 5, and then you start debating like, now I'm not even in a position.
I'm in so far.
Yeah, I'm in a well, now I'm in a position where, okay, if I stop drinking now and I don't drink for like the next hour, I can drive home. It's dicey, but
it's
like,
already dicey at that point.
Yeah, of course, yes. But like, I'm just saying that these are the conversations that you have with yourself. But but then at that point, then once you've gotten to the last one, then it's like, okay, well, if I'm not driving home, you know, if hopefully you've made the decision to get an Uber or have somebody else drive you home.
Yeah.
That like, well, what's the point in just being buzzed now? Like, I'm gonna make the use out of getting this ride home and get hammered.
Yeah.
And
you're
then
like,
now,
well, I'm already. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're already in too deep, so you may as well go with it.
And then now this isn't a thing that like you go out for a couple of hours and then it doesn't really impact the rest of like what you're trying to do. Now like you're possibly, you know, you're at least hungover that your morning is shot.
Yeah.
Whether you're going to work, you're at home, whatever, your morning
You're
is
gonna
shot.
lose a day basically.
Yeah, and if you really had an epic night, your day is probably shot.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of what you had to do or what is going to happen.
True.
And like I said, and it's just like the more that you let, like I said, it seems like small decisions.
Yeah.
But then like those small decisions turn into,
I know.
now I didn't get this done. I needed to get this done. Now I got to work the next 3 days.
Domino effect. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? So to like go off that too, I've realized, and this is probably like more to like you be able to relate to this too, as far as the you know, being sober for how long now?
I'm about to be 8 months.
8 months? Yeah, that's a chunk of time. I've come to the terms of like or not come to the terms, but like I just know, like I think we all know that if I I'll just speak on my behalf. If I just didn't drink from today on for the rest of my life, it's going to be a positive no matter what. It's like you're purifying your life in a way, and you are taking something that is sort of like a negative. And yeah, it does create moments sometimes and opportunities that sometimes are good, but also you also don't know the opportunities that you're fucking up by drinking. So it's like, you know, you think you're like, oh, this is great. I could really, you know, make some, like, things are happening when I go out and drink, but then also bad things happen when you go out and drink sometimes. And I'll speak honestly, because this is a podcast and I'm on the Who Thought We'd Be Here podcast. And, you know, for like speaking openly and honestly, like I've been unfortunate enough to accumulate a DUI. And you know what? I'll speak on it in this way where I always look at it and I go, well, fuck, I was okay to drive. I know myself, I was safe to drive, and I was confident in knowing that I'd be safe to the people around me. And, you know, it's funny to say that, and a lot of people could hear that and be like, that's bullshit. But, like, you know, just let me have it for that. But what I'm getting at is that regardless, the risk of it, whether you're being dangerous or not, you're all like the risk in just accumulating it just because you're under the influence, and if they decide to pull you over and breathalyze you and you get it, it changes your life. It hits you in the pockets. It fucks you over with your license and your record and all this stuff. Now you got to hire a lawyer. You got to do all that stuff, right? So it's like, no matter what, whether you're being safe or not, which should be number one. I'll say that it's number one. Should be you want to be safe, obviously, and you want to be safe around others and to others. But outside of that, like, it's just not worth the risk.
Yeah.
Because of what comes with that Dewey. And like, it's tough because how the fuck do people even go out and drink without driving? You know what I mean? It's like, how many people do we know? That's what I've noticed since getting a DUI is how many people do it.
I got mine
way
when
worse
I was
than
20.
I do. You know?
I got my first one when I was 20. I wasn't even an alcoholic yet.
Yeah,
at
no, that's
that
what I'm
point.
saying.
I
Like,
got
it's just
a DWI,
unfortunate, right?
Yeah, like that kind of started the spiral for
Yeah.
me. Like, I have a very different relationship with alcohol because my dad drank my dad doesn't get wasted, but like he has, like, for as long as I can remember, at least 2 beers every day.
Yeah.
My mom doesn't really drink, but I've worked in restaurants my whole life, and it's kind of just like a normal thing. Like, it's casual. It was casual to give the 18-year-old kid that was bussing or serving tables drinks. Like, that was me. And, like, it was accepted. And I think that kind of just, like, for me, it took a while to realize that it's not as normal as it shouldn't be as normal as it's made out to be, to just be drinking all the time. And then you realize, like you were saying, like, how much you drink. And, like, for me, I was I'm either going all the way, like, or I'm not drinking at all. Like, I'm going till failure.
Same.
And that was, like, what got to me. And I like you were saying, like, it just, those bad nights stack up enough, and you're just cringing the whole time. And
like,
I was
I'm
like,
sick of these fucked
I
up
have
moments.
to fucking change this. That's what happened for me.
Because you think about it, you're like, oh, but so much, like, you have good moments in there. Like, maybe you guys have a great laugh.
I've had so many, like, great things happen to me just
Yeah.
because of bartending and drinking.
Yeah.
Like, because it really did, like, it's part of the industry. And, like, there's so many conversations that I've had that have helped me out in life, like getting somewhere because I talked to a person while I was drinking at a bar. You know what I mean?
See, interesting. These are talks you don't hear a lot of people talk about too, because there's, like, that aspect of it. But I think ultimately it is that thing where it's like, you think that's kind of like a thing of alcoholism, I'm sure. And I don't know anything about AA or any of that. I've never taken it. But you know what I have realized, that a lot of these, like, from hearing AA people talk about it, it's similar to yoga books and stuff that you read. Yeah, it really does tap in. And like I'm saying, these life situations that they teach you about. But it's funny because a lot of times you'll be like, well, but how would you explain this? This wouldn't have happened if I wasn't out drinking that night and this and that. And it's like, but you also don't know what would have happened if you were sober. You know what I'm saying? You also just don't know.
It's like really just like life was the universe was making that shit happen regardless. So like, fuck, I don't even know why I grabbed from, like.
Still a good line.
Yeah.
Clip it. Well,
the damn pot. See, folks.
But I think it's kind of like a paradox. It's like, because, like, I could say the exact same thing that you said, which is that, like, the blessings and the friendships that have come from not just even alcohol, but just, like, you know, being in a restaurant, being around
working in a restaurant,
that, like,
for
you're
sure.
Not, you know,
working in a restaurant, you become a family.
Yeah. But that, like, generally isn't good for you.
Yeah.
Whether it's the staying up late or the drinking or
there's so many toxic people in the restaurant business,
the sleeping
right?
around, the
Speaking of, as I just subconsciously grabbed from my vape out of my
grab
pocket.
Grab the Nick.
That was another thing I was gonna like. We talked about it before. I was gonna say but nicotine's healthy, right? Like, that's what they're saying now, is that nicotine is healthy. And just as a disclaimer, I have the vape because I went to a wedding.
Can we get an inspection on that thing?
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie though. I am that guy. When I go out drinking, I'm that guy that's like, can I hit your vape, bro? That's why, bro, the Joe Biden meme I love so much. So remember, he's handing the pen back to the dude, and he's like the one friend that you don't even have to ask. He knows, and he's just giving it to you because he knows you're gonna ask. I love that meme because it's like, as the guy that's always asking for the vape, only when I'm heavily drinking. When I'm like, I don't care. I never think about smoking a vape or cigarettes when I'm like light drinking or sober at all. But now, of course, I bought it and I have it, so I'm hitting it.
Yeah.
And I like to trick myself and being like, well, you got this yoga class coming up, and they say nicotine really zones in your focus and kind of wakes you up a little bit. It's a stimulant, so it'll be good. Or you're going to the gym, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
But now I'm just hitting it before I go to bed, and I'm tossing and turning in my bed.
Well, no, and I think that you bring up a good point there, which is the same thing, kind of the same thing that I had around weed, which is like, can you kind of like cultivate awareness around it, whether it's drinking or smoking or, like, you know, the nicotine or something like, can you cultivate some type of awareness around it that is like, am I going to hit the bong right now? Because, like I said, like, I do genuinely, like, there's a reason why it's legal now. Like, it has effects for, you know, people like all of us who have anxiety and stuff like that, which is like, am I reaching for the bong right now because, like, you know, I had a long day and I'm looking for a little relief from my anxiety?
Yeah.
Or am I reaching for it, like, for the opposite reason, which is like to just because it's in front of me, like, because I want to hit it, because I'm bored. Yeah, because I'm bored. Like,
I don't. I
Almost,
think
yeah,
that
it
one
is
of the
similar.
reasons is
There's
better.
those moments like the food thing earlier. It is that too with
Yeah.
smoking weed. It's totally. Sometimes you're like, well, I got nothing going on and I don't have to do anything for this amount of time. Why not hit it?
Yeah.
You know.
Have ADHD and we just self-diagnosed ourselves.
But even what
I've been known.
but what you said before, even with the weed, is like that whole thing with the anxiety or whatnot. I hate to say it, and I'm a pot advocate. And I will be to the day I die, because it does have so many medical benefits to it, and especially for people that are in more dire need. But when I hear, no offense, when I hear people like you guys say like, oh, like it helps me with my anxiety and stuff, and it's like, I'm sorry, but that's like bullshit. Like everything what there, you can take care of through yourself. Weed for me is like, and listen, I smoke weed. I love weed. But like weed, the reason why it's way better than alcohol is because it does have benefits to people that, like, you know, maybe someone has Tourette's and they can't control something and it helps calm that, or maybe they have seizures and it helps calm that, or maybe you have cancer and you don't want to take opiates and you want to rather smoke because that settles you down. For that reason, weed is so incredible and way more healthy than pills and all that shit. But when people are like, I do use it in a healthy fashion, I just use it to help me with my ADHD or anxiety, and I know you as a person. It's like, you're pretty normal, bro. You know, like
Whether you like it or not, we all have.
And I hate to say it, but
crutches.
it is a coping thing. And
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, yeah, it is helping you, and it's helping you cope. But it's also like you're dependent. You're dependent.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Like, I mean, we've all been smoking weed now for years now, and like I said, I don't think that it's a lie that you tell yourself, but I do think that it's like, how can you like build around it to say like, oh, okay, like, because then that starts to cultivate the response of, well, I don't need to hit it right now.
Yeah,
Like,
no, it's true. Sometimes you got to
know
go
what I
through
mean?
it to figure that out.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I mean, and eventually, like, I mean, you're never gonna have like a perfect relationship with, like I said, it's a substance. You're putting smoke in your lungs, whether we like it or not. Like that's what we're doing. But then at the same time, like, none of us are perfect. We all are trying to like get through the day, and if that, like I said, if that helps you get through the day, or the nicotine helps you get through the day, or, you know, feels like it gives you an edge.
I'm not addicted, by the way.
You're definitely not addicted, bro. You're definitely not addicted. I've noticed how much better your yoga classes are since you've been hitting the nicotine pen.
Oh, that's great.
But I mean, as I said, like, I'm not gonna like wake up and then just like quit weed like that. But at least like you're developing some type of awareness around like, why am I using it? Why do I feel this way?
Yeah.
Oh, I feel anxious right now. Well, I know 4 other things that I can do. Like, I could go journal, I could go meditate, I could do something else that may not give me the same effect that I'm looking for from weed. But if the problem that I'm saying that I have is anxiety, then like at least give something else a try. Like, you can't just be turning to like your bong is your best friend. Like, you know what I mean?
I always
go fuck your bong. You go fuck your bong.
I always love the simple term like to live and learn, because like I feel like most things you really do just have to experience and live through it in order to like fix it ultimately. Maybe that's not the same for everyone, but like, for instance, to bring it back to like the whole Dewey situation, like if I am actually in a lot of ways like, and just like you kind of have to turn your negatives into positives, because that's the best way you can handle something. And with getting a Dewey, like I look at it now and I'm like, I'm very grateful that I got the Dewey now and early, because now it makes me way more conscious. If I didn't, I was that guy that was like I said, I do hold my alcohol pretty well, and I've always prided myself in some stupid ass way of being like I could drink and drive, no problem. And when I can't, I'm very good at determining that and saying I'm not driving today because I could tell I'm being dangerous. But I would in the past I would be like, you know, oh, I'm fine. Like, even though I'm fucked up, I know I can drive fine. At the very least, I know I could drive. And so in order, like, in getting that Dewey, it didn't matter whether you could drive or not. It showed me though that it's like, it doesn't matter. Uh-oh, Rough Riders are out. Ashy Bandits. That could be a racist term these days. If people don't know, if this podcast, if this podcast, I was gonna say, if this podcast ever blows up and people want to come back and say, were they making derogatory statements towards black people? No.
No, it was Will.
God damn it. No. Ashy Bandits was a group of young kids. It was specifically young kids that basically a young gang that would basically just ride around and cause mischief. Yeah, that's basically what they were. Yeah, Ashy Bandits. Shout out to Ashy Bandits. I wonder if there's still people out there repping the Ashy Bandits for real.
Well,
this also sounds like a good time to mention that I've also been offered once before to join the Bloods.
have you?
Now, there's no story behind it or anything. It was just like I kind of grew up in a lot of ways like in the hood because of like sports and basketball and whatnot, and I was just like, I like to say I didn't have a white friend until I came to Heritage, where I like kind of like reconnected with the New Windsor kids because I played football for the New Windsor Eagles. But I was never really friends with any of them. I just played football a lot, and I was like kind of like acquaintances with them. But when I went to school, I just kind of like, you just become friends after going to school. But yeah, So yeah. Anyway,
So
enough about the Bloods and the.
man, I feel like this has been a very good conversation so far.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you guys feel?
No, I like it, and this is exactly what I was hoping for. I was hoping to dive as deep as possible because like we said, like sometimes it's therapy, and what do you do in therapy? You have to say things out loud, and you have to put it out there. And I feel like when you, especially in a podcast form, you put it out there, and people relate to it. And some people are gonna laugh at you, but some people are gonna literally be like, "Holy shit! Like that's me. You just tugged at my heartstrings, and I love these people."
That's what we're trying to do, right? I mean, that's what me and JP have like said from the beginning, that we want to like the content that we're trying to make is, one, it's therapy for us to sit here and have these conversations and talk about stuff that's actually important that doesn't get talked about enough. And two is the hope that somebody listening is impacted by it, and it may help them take that step that they need to go change their self for the better. You know what I mean?
Or at the very least, look at themselves and talk about it. Like have that starting process, like you said, to be like, like, oh, I am doing this, or that, or that's, because some people are very blindly doing their thing. That's how people become 600 pounds.
Yeah.
They don't even realize they're 600. They miss the point where they're 400 pounds because they're just like they're in the mud of it,
Yeah.
So it's all about dissecting the problem as soon as possible, really. And I have those conversations with alcohol about myself all the time. My goal is to like you said earlier, find that balance, find that way, find the structure around it to where you could still enjoy. And because I do enjoy it, it's not just a matter of like I like to get fucked up. It's never really that. It really is. There's times where I'm like, oh, like it's like I've worked out heavy today. It's a beautiful hot summer day. Maybe my friend's inviting me to go on the boat. I'm taking the boat out. Like a Modelo with lime sounds amazing right now, and I love the taste of it. It's like a soda or whatever, your drink, your food of choice. Like I do enjoy it as a flavorful thing, but it's a substance and it could get carried away. So it's like, that's why I feel no shame in talking about it, because it's just a matter of like, realizing that in yourself and, properly dealing with it, really.
Cool. Which I think what you just said kind of leads me into the next question that I want to ask you, and you've already kind of mentioned it, especially the fact that a part of the reason why we did this was that there's plenty of resources out there for mental health.
Are you getting levels on your mic? Sorry, I don't want to.
No, you're good. I'm coming in. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, there he is. There we go. Yeah, we're good.
It seemed small, and I was worried that your mic was.
No. I mean, I just recorded I kind of set it up on the low end so that we can always boost it up if we need
Got
to.
you. My bad.
No,
I feel
bro.
like an asshole now.
Bro, I've been thinking about it the whole time, bro.
All right. Because how that would suck when it's over.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Without pressing record or something like that. Yeah. A big reason why we did this, that was a motivating factor, was we were like, we feel like men are talking about this kind of stuff, but that what we're doing specifically, and the people who have known us for a long time will say that how did they get to the point where as men they're talking about these types of things? So how do you find it? You're obviously I'm not making things up here.
you're known as a pretty manly guy. You got a deep voice. You know what I mean? Like, how do you find that?
That's subjective.
Well,
Not the voice, but the.
but like, externally, yeah, of course.
I'm not a handyman. I always
Yeah,
hated myself for that reason.
You look like an electrician, bro.
I turn into a real. I turn into the girliest girl when it comes to handy shit. I'm like, how do I plug this thing in the wire? I don't know anything.
I mean, I'm a little bit, but I'm not super good at stuff like that.
But I watch mixed martial arts though.
How do you find? Oh, nice. Here we go. This is what the people wanted. This is what the people wanted.
We're gonna start a Patreon.
That's yams, right? That's yams.
Yeah. Oh.
Hey, welcome yams. Welcome yams.
What are you saying? I'm not manly, but what?
No. Well,
I do
yoga. Like I
yoga.
said,
I can't fix anything.
externally, like however people perceive, but like I don't think they would say like I don't think anybody walks by you and is like that guy's a fucking pussy. So, how do you approach that type of? And I don't know if you maybe like feel this energy from people, or if people have said stuff to you, like because we talked about how like what your reputation was before you were like a yoga instructor, and you were diving into mental things. How do you treat that type of like when maybe you get that type of feeling from somebody where they're like, oh, like I don't really like it when guys talk about stuff like that, or like how do you approach?
I see what you're saying.
Being vulnerable as a guy.
It's tough. It's tough because it really is like just a matter of not giving a fuck is really what it is. And it's like, and ultimately when I feel like we all have our moments where you're like, you have that real good energy of not giving a fuck, where it's like the best kind, where it's like you get like, that's almost like, tell me that's like a real manly feeling, is not giving a fuck,
Yeah.
Like not worrying about a judgment because you're so like, because it really just says that you're more like secure with knowing like crop tops. All right, Ezekiel Elliott over here. That's such a funny statement. Clip that. That's funny.
Right.
I wear crop tops every day.
This is why we need 3 mics.
Yeah, that's one of those things where you clip that sound and use it throughout the podcast now, like as a sound bite. You know, I wear crop tops every day. It's just like it's tough though too, because I'd be lying if I said that sometimes it didn't annoy me a little bit when people, even if they try to poke fun and they're like, "Oh, you're this and that," you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And some people are just really good at getting under your skin.
Because you know what they're trying to get at. They may not carry it the same way, like I said, because of who they know you to be or whatever it is.
I guess you just really have to take comfort in knowing that if someone got to know you and sat down and became like your friend, and over time they would realize what you're about. And because I think that's the problem, right? Is we all sometimes we worry about what people, like the first impression that they get of you. You're like, oh well, they now because of that they probably think I'm like this, but they're not. And it's like ultimately it's like that's just like you can't think that way. It's like, I'm saying this in a way where I know it to be true, but I'd never do it for myself, or I do it sometimes for myself, but I don't do it nearly enough for myself, which is again just not give a fuck and like let it just slide off your back. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I'll be honest, like I'm like that happens all the time where I'm just like, and it only will affect you like shortly, but I guess it's really a matter of staying your course, putting the blinders on, and just like doing those things that are bringing you joy, because the more joy you fill yourself with, the more just comfortable you just naturally become. And like the more comfortable you're going to be in any situation where someone could literally be making fun of you to your face, and like they could be getting hostile with you, and you're just even though if you're inside you're like, I could beat this guy's ass, you could still just be like, if anything you start to feel upset for them. You're like, man, like
the manliest thing that you can do is not fight this guy right now.
Right? Like and just kind of like look at them as like, man, it sucks. I could tell it sucks where you're at in your life, because you're like you're putting way too much care into this thing that has nothing to even do with you, and I've done nothing to impose this feeling in you. It's like it's just all coming from that's really what it is. You really have to realize that when people come at you like that, they're really just projecting their shit. You know what I mean?
I used to have like
I don't really use it anymore, but I think it still rings true for me in a different way when, like, because not that I used to get into fights, but I would get into verbal altercations, like, often enough. Go ahead, bud, if you want to go.
And that's what I'm saying. I still get in them too. I have friends that know how to fuck with me.
Yeah, and one of the things that I would say to people, like, if I felt like they were angry and it wasn't valid, like it wasn't like a good enough reason to be angry, I'd be like, "Is everything all right at home?"
Yeah.
But I'd say it in like a a snippy way, like in being a smart ass, being like you need to go solve it. But then like that really does come to ring true, and then you realize that you've been the guy who, made a big deal.
Yeah.
Or
you've done it in your own way.
In your own way, because something else, your girlfriend was you were fighting with your girlfriend, or you didn't get the promotion that you wanted, or whatever it was, and you take it out in a different way.
Oh yeah, girlfriend situations like that. That if you ever been in a long-term relationship in the past, or ever lived with a girlfriend, that shit happens all the time. You like come home and just like that's a coping thing in itself. Like unloading your shit onto your significant other. That's such a common one. But yeah, that nothing drives people more crazy than when you're like, "Yo, what's good? Like, you all right? Like what? Like, talk to me, man. What's wrong? What's wrong?" And then they're like, "Nothing's wrong." You know what I mean? Yeah. And sometimes you gotta have grace for people too, because sometimes people are going through their own shit. So you could you never know what it is. Losing loved ones, ending relationships, and you just are having a hard time with that. Whatever it may be. And to bring it back to like yoga, sometimes you're teaching yoga, and I've been there in class, and this is why you just can't pay too much mind to it. I've been in front of a full class, and I'm like getting this vibe where I'm looking at people's faces, and I'm like, everyone looks so miserable right now, and I'm like, fuck, like they look like they hate this, and they're like, they wish they weren't here, and then you start to get in your head about it, and you're like, oh fuck, what am I doing wrong? And then all of a sudden the class ends, and everyone's like, thank you so much, that was so great, I'll be back next week or whatever. And you're like, oh, I thought that person hated me. And you just realize like some people just have a resting bitch face. Some people just are going through something that day, and they're happy to be there, they're just not showing it. So you really just can't, not to be so cliche with it, but you just kind of can't judge a book by its cover sometimes. Because it's easy to be like, if someone's picking on you, to be like, to fire back and be like, well, fuck you, why are you making me feel like this? Where really it's like, they might just be going through something that's so fucked up, and you would feel bad for it if you knew. But, they're not going to tell you. But so it's tough. It's tough. You know what? One of the things I wanted to say in a Dharma talk, like soon, is just like, again, it may sound cliche, but it just has layers to it. It's just that life is not fucking easy, yo. Life is not fucking easy. It requires constant work, whether it's physically or mentally. Like, you constantly have to work towards something in order to keep peace. And if you don't, more problems just accumulate, and the more shit you're gonna feel in your life. And it's like, it goes back to the whole thing where you're like, you feel like shit, and you're like, your day can go to shit real quick, or you could dissect right there and be like, okay, you could tell, in this moment that this is what it is. So start right in this moment correcting it by putting the blinders on, doing the thing you don't want to do, and before you know it, by the end of the day, you're going to feel a little bit better, and you're going to be like, oh, I almost lost it there, but it's, I was able to turn it around. I was able to pull the zip cord right in time before that day went to a complete waste. Nothing's worse than wasting time too, right? I look back at my 20s, bro. I wasted all my 20s. I wasted them all. I really did. I worked towards nothing. I was spoiled.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
But like, because I have that same thought all the time, which is like, I spent my whole 20s working in a restaurant, being unhappy, spending my time around, like, some of my friends have survived that, but like a lot of them have not. You know what I mean? Like getting really close with people who you never really had that much in common with anyway.
Oh yeah, yep.
But like, don't you feel like it's not a waste because of where you're at now? That like, if your 20s had gone, if whether it's like you're mad that you weren't as ambitious enough, or that you did, like I said, you used the term waste, but like, you could have gone a completely different path, and it never would have led you to being like a yoga instructor, and you could still find yourself maybe being like, I didn't waste it, but like I'm not doing what I want to do either.
Yeah, no, very, very interesting because, yeah, it's 100% true that all that stuff does lead to something good. But the thing is, like, it's a matter of being active and working towards it in order to make that thing happen. Because what I was going to say is that I'm comfortable in saying I wasted my 20s because I know I did. Internally, I know I could have been doing a lot more. But I'm also grateful in knowing that I realized this at 30. So that feeling didn't carry on into my 40s and 50s, because some people don't realize it until they're 50 and go, and even 50 to some people are like, thank God it's now and not 60. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's all about perspective, because
there's that great quote that's like, the best time that you can plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Right now. Yeah, I like that.
It's today.
Yeah,
you know,
that's kind of true.
That
what's that guy's name? No, I don't
I was interested. What's the Seth Rogen quote from which one?
I don't know exactly. You've seen the clip though, the one where he's talking about what's the guy's name that plays in the X-Men. He's talking about how you can, at any time in life, you can actually make it. You know what I'm talking about.
I think I do, but I'm not positive. Yeah, but the essence of it is that, like, it doesn't matter how old you are, or when you start doing something, you can.
I thought you were gonna, because you said Seth Rogen and made me think.
He's talking about, who's the guy from fucking X-Men? Professor X.
Yes.
Oh, Patrick Stewart?
No, the other one.
Hugh Jackman?
The young. You're talking
Magneto?
about Magneto.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Ian McKellen.
Yeah, he's just
yeah.
Have you ever heard of Sir Ian McKellen before he was in X-Men? Like, you can do anything when you're 60.
Yeah, no, I know. And how?
Yeah, like what Morgan Freeman didn't really get his first legitimate acting role until he was 50, and he's regarded as one of the greatest actors of our time.
That list goes on and on about the people that find their shit at certain times and whatever. But one of my other favorite quotes, and it always fuels me when I would hear it. Now it's I've heard it so much, but well, because some things the first time you hear it, you're like, you know what was really nice. I love the modern age of people making reels with music, and it really does get you, and that's why it's so damn addicting. Because I'll scroll there and I'll crack up at half the shit, but every now and then there's just that one that just is fuck, that really just hit home.
Yeah.
The Joe Rogan one I'm talking about is when he's like, I hate when people are like, man, I wish I thought about that sooner. And he's like, well, you didn't. So shut the fuck up and get going. Yeah. And it's but I like it. I like the way he said it, because it's he put it just so simply, it's not introspective. It's just it's when people are complaining, man, I wish I had started that sooner. It's that's the simplicity of yeah, well, you didn't. So shut the fuck up and either do it or don't do it. You know what I mean? Or to quote, you said Morgan Freeman. Shout out Shawshank Redemption. He's like, oh, you gotta get busy living or get busy dying. You know what I mean? And that's it's all the same thing. Yeah, I love that too. Speaking of layers of things, right? Where it's you could hear a quote and it's yeah, it's cliche and we hear it a million times, but there's just so many layers. You never know the one time you're going to hear it and it's going to change something in you. Yeah. So it's good to keep saying it. Yeah.
So, man, you want to plug some stuff? You want to plug the podcast? Do your schedule for yoga?
Yeah, man. Let's see what we got. Caution to the airwaves. I'll be recording this weekend. Technically it drops every Sunday night. I just don't post about it till Monday. So, yeah, Caution to the Airwaves, my podcast, MMA based, combat sports based. I cover it all. I would love to have, I was talking about before, I would love to maybe do a watch party, maybe do some recordings. You could even use some of the content. We could fuck around. Absolutely. Maybe even record a fucking Who Would Have Thought podcast while we watch along for the early fights where it's not as serious. But even though I'm literally that guy that's start to finish watching. But yeah, and yoga, I guess it's funny. It's funny to be plugging. It just feels weird. Yeah, I teach classes at Yoga High in New Windsor. They have one in Highland Falls. That one I do Wednesday mornings and I do Friday afternoons. Go to yogahigh.ny.com if you want to know more about that studio. I teach at BeBhakti Beacon in Beacon, New York. I do that one Mondays and Thursdays. You could look up the website and Google that. And Gold's Gym on Tuesday nights, which you can Google that. Follow me at the Gangster Yogi.
That works. That's what we were looking
for. Yeah, there we go. That's all that really needed to be said.
We'll put
there.
all the other stuff in the show notes, so this way people can actually see your schedule and stuff.
Yeah, in the title, it should be whatever you want to put. My name, aka the Gangster Yogi.
We got you.
We
can do that for you.
Yeah. No, and honestly, thanks again for having me on. This has been a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie. I was confident about it all day, and right as we were about to start, I was like,
always happens.
All of a sudden, I'm no longer confident in what we're doing.
Yeah, I hit you really awkwardly too with just the intro right off the bat. Grab the microphone and start calling.
I was playing the joke and I was doing the thing that everyone does on podcasts, being like, "Are we rolling?" But so I knew you were starting. It wasn't awkward, trust me.
All right, man. Well, thank you for having us at your house to record, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, dude. We
here.
really appreciate your vulnerability, and I feel like we have to acknowledge this. You only get one first guest, and this.
That's true. Hey,
I hope
for my sake you guys blow the fuck up so people get to know about me.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, but also keep in mind that but I mean, what came from this? Yeah, for what came from this conversation, what we're talking about, that's not selfish. We want people to know about this stuff, and we do plan on having you back. You know what I mean?
I appreciate it. I'd love to do it again. And I feel like I see you guys get a lot of positivity coming your way. I'm paying attention. You guys get solid views right off the bat. You know what I mean? You guys just started. And, we're lucky that we do have a lot of, friends out here that it's cool that we could do this, be the ones that start and doing podcasting. So that way, because we know at the very least there's going to be a couple people in our friend groups and that know us that aren't even our friends that are oh, they're doing this thing. Let me go check it out,
Yeah, and we hope that not only that this helps with your mental health and that, maybe you gain some feeling that you're not alone, but also that this gives you the courage to go out there and if you want to start a podcast or you want to start selling your art or start a clothing brand or you want to start teaching yoga or you want to write a book or whatever it is that you're scared to do. That you think you can never get there, that's exactly why we're here. We hope that us doing this podcast helps, even if it's a little bit, a half an inch of
get busy living or get busy dying.
Facts.
No, honestly, you guys are doing a great thing here. I like it. It's not a lot of this kind of content going out there, and it's needed. It really is needed, honestly.
We're gonna keep it coming out.
Hey, I'll be watching.
Hey, man.
I have been watching.
We're going international too. We got 1% of our viewers is in London.
You guys are always good to make me to get a good
drill, baby.
You guys always get a good little giggle out of me on the clips and the stuff. You know what I mean? It's always fun.
Yeah, we definitely got some good ones today. All right, man.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, dude.
Hey, go Birds.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you, Will.
Yes, sir.
We're not saying goodbye to each other right now. We're just going to stop recording. But thank you. Thanks for listening.